What's up, YouTube? Adam Grover coming at you with another video. Had a long day at work, so I don't know how well this video is going to be. I'm tired today for some reason. But anyway, wanted to share some insight or information with you guys that might be helpful. As you know, I got the wagon that's outside, and I'll be pulling the motor out of it hopefully soon. And I got a couple more goodies for it from my buddy Tyler. He gave me a timing chain and gear. He got it for his 302, I guess, and said he wasn't going to use it. I asked him what he was doing with it while I was over there. He said just take it. So it's adjustable. It's got 9 keyways in it. Looks like a Cloy's. Could be a Ford Racing. It has a part number on it. I haven't looked it up. But I use a Cloy's kit that looks just like this. Usually buy them new. They used to be relatively cheap, like 90 bucks for a brand new timing chain and gear. True double roller, meaning that the rollers in here spin, and it's a double chain. It's not just a single chain deal. The motor that is in the wagon is a 68 Mustang engine, usually a nylon chain, and they stretch pretty bad, especially when they get up in miles and stuff. So this is also billet. It's not cast, so it's a little bit stronger of a gear. I've seen the cast ones actually literally explode just being tapped on with like a hammer. I mean, I don't even mean like a sledgehammer. I mean like I thought I had one here, but like a carpenter hammer. So just tapping it, tink, 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 and the thing just poof. So I think it was like a $20 chain my dad had bought. Might have been a comp or something back probably 20 years ago. So I like to run these chains. Like I said, they have 9 keyways. That's for the cam timing. So you can degrade it straight up, dot to dot, or you can put it to 4, 6, 8 degrees advance or retarded. It has the little markings all the way around it. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. It's going to be backwards. But the crank gear is marked. So when you put this on, you would slide it on. If you want it too advanced, you'll slide it on the 2A mark, and you'll put the dot for the cam gear aligned with the 2A mark. So these are staggered slightly different. Obviously 2 degrees, 4 degrees, and so on. So you can play with the cam timing a little bit without having to actually turn it on the gears, turning the chain on the gears. So it makes it a little bit easier to do that. You're really supposed to use a degree wheel when you do a camshaft. If you have a good chain and everything's marked correctly and all that, you put the degree wheel on and you degree it, you can use this setup and it should come out spot on, 2 degrees advance, yada yada yada. But personally, I've never used the degree wheel on anything I've owned. I've played with cam timing in a couple different cars by using this chain, just changing it 2 degrees advance, retarded. The car that I did a lot of that on, I had other issues with it, so I didn't really get to see any gains. However, I did see a change in cylinder pressure, like I've talked about in the past videos. That's how I know that cam timing can change cylinder pressure and bleed off compression or keep compression in the cylinder. I'm going to put this up. Bear with me for a minute. Alright, so now that that's out of the way and I went on blabbing about that, this is the next piece that we got. This is a balancer, obviously. Now, this is a Trick Flow Specialties balancer. This was another thing Tyler had over there. I said, what do you want for that? He goes, I don't know. Make me an offer. So, well, honestly, I don't have much money right now on me. He goes, don't worry about it. Just, we'll figure it out later. Okay, cool. So I grabbed it. He said, if you need it, take it. So I'll owe him something for that. And then I showed you guys the aluminum flywheel. Getting back to this balancer, they have weights. This was for a 50-ounce setup. You can see how big that weight is compared to what's going to go on it. This is a 28-ounce weight. Now, I believe these are bonded together. This one has bolts in it. I don't know if this is a higher up one. I think the one I got was bonded, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's the older one. I don't remember it having bolts in it. One thing you don't want to use for a balancer is a fluid damper. I've heard problems of them leaking, and it throws the engine out of balance, and then you break stuff, blow stuff up. It's a bad time. So I never ran a fluid damper on anything. They usually have a little drain or something in them, so you can tell that they're a fluid damper, and it usually says fluid damper on it. This one has the Trick Flow engraved on it. It has many different timing marks on it around the whole perimeter for different year engines. So it can be used with HO, 50, 289, 302, whatever you want to call it, 255, any small block Ford, 351 Windsor. You can use that balancer, change the weight to what you need it to. I like using an aftermarket balancer. The stock ones, when they get old, they have rubber in them. That rubber wears out, and next thing you know, the balancer spins. Now your balancing weight is out of position where it should be. Throws the crank out of balance. Motor blows up, or has a nasty vibration. Real quick story about wrong balancers. That's actually a wrong flex plate. But a buddy of mine got a car off me a couple years ago. He's been putting it together. He has a 86 Mustang engine, short block. It's a 50-ounce balance engine. He put a 28-ounce flex plate on it. The oil pressure that the car had at idle was about 10, 15-ish pounds, I want to say, cold. The car did not sound good. It sounded like crap. It sounded very sluggish. Just like it was like somebody put the thing together completely wrong. It was bad. I asked him, I said, what flex plate you got? He goes, I don't know, it came with the trans. I said, what's it out of? A Fox body. So, well, that doesn't tell me anything. So that could be a stroker Fox body. Was it a stock Fox body engine? Do you know? Oh, I don't know. So check it. Because it's 28-ounce balance. This is the part number. I'm like, you can't use that. That thing's thrown way out of balance, so you got to change the flex plate. So he listened to me. Thank God. Puts a flex plate in it. Oil pressure comes up. I think I want to say 30 pounds of idle cold. Maybe 40. From a flex plate. A balancing issue. That is wild to think that oil pressure could jump up 20 to 30 psi at idle over balancing. Let that sink in. Over this weight right here. Basically, on a flex plate. Which would be the same as having a flywheel. Alright, so it's a pretty important piece. Very important. Now, the reason I showed you this weight, this is a 28 ounce weight. This is a 50 ounce weight. Very big difference. I got this for my flywheel. As I told you in the previous video, if you watched it, got this aluminum flywheel. All I needed was a weight. This is a kit. It comes with both weights. Comes with the 2 little screws. So I will be using red thread lock and bolting them down. And I will do the same with this weight on the balancer. Red thread lock, bolting it down. Now I like using a lightweight flywheel. This is an aluminum flywheel. This thing's probably 5-10 pounds. Just guesstimating. Some people like using a 40-pound flywheel, 20-pound, 30-pound. I want to say I've seen as heavy as 60. To me, that is just a lot. I understand the theory behind that. I really do. Because when you got that weight slinging, it will power through when you dump the clutch. So keep the RPM up. Where this will bulk because it doesn't have the weight to keep it going. Now, with that being said, the way I look at it is when you have weight, heavy weight, I mean, you're spinning something heavy like that, 6,000, 7,000 RPM, that weight is slinging. And it's wanting to leave. That's how I look at it. Now, I could be way wrong on my theory. But, I mean, you got these 6 little bolts in the middle. And then the crank that kind of sits in there. But when this is spinning, and it's wanting to do this, when you have 60 pounds at 7,000 RPM, it's really wanting to fly right off the engine. Just gone. That's what it's going to want to do. You reduce that weight, it's going to take that pressure off the crank. Now, I know it's hard to bog stuff down that can break other parts. I mean, transmissions are expensive, but I mean, running a T5, there's still a couple of them out there. You can source them. I'd rather break a T5 than an engine all day long, especially because a T5 is prone to break, so you're going to break it regardless. If you have a good trans, then it's better to save it. But to me, it's just as hard, if not harder on it, having that weight trying to sling off. It's going to vibrate. My theory is that it starts going through the transmission like this, wanting to rack it. You're jousting everything with that weight, in my opinion. That's my theory. Now, I know there's old school guys that run that stuff. That's great. You have your own reason for doing that, and there's nothing wrong with running a heavy flywheel. You guys want to do that? By all means, do it. If it's worked for you, I'm nobody to tell you not to. I'm going off of what I use, and I'm just telling you guys my opinion and theory on what it does. So to me, this is a lot easier on something. I mean, I spun my 302 7,000 RPM. I've actually taken it to 8. And so far, thank God, I haven't had an issue. I've never cracked a block in half. Granted, I don't make big power. You know, I usually get the car down in weight like every other drag racer does. Somebody who's serious about drag racing will have a light car. If you build something heavy, that's your own problem. It's your own fault. You chose that body, you chose that chassis, that's on you. So don't get upset with me when I build something light and it stays together. That's one reason why it stays together. weight helps a lot. Hence, so not only through the, I mean, you're talking, if you're talking a 40 pound, even 40 pounds compared to 10, that's a good 30 pounds out of the car, and it's rotational weight. So I mean, I had a guy tell me that for every X amount of RPM, it's so many hundreds of pounds, something spinning, rotational mass. You got something that weighs like 10 pounds and you spin it X RPM, it doubles, triples, quadruples, and it keeps going up the faster it spins. So, I'm not a scientist. I just go off of stuff I've learned through the years and what people have told me. This is my own theory with this. I've had a lot of guys preach against aluminum flywheels to me, but it works for me, so I'm going to keep using aluminum flywheels. So, this is probably going to suck to take off. However, it does come with new bolts. When you order this, this comes as one. This weight for the balancer. So you get new hardware and a weight. And then, like I said, you get the 2 weights and the hardware for the flywheel. This is a McLeod kit. Comes with instructions, diagram on the back. Tells you install small 28 ounce or large 50 ounce weight. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Large, small. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. But that's also one reason why I packaged this. So that way I'm not like, oh, hey, let me put this weight on, not thinking about it, because 10-hour work day. And just getting home, an hour-and-a-half drive on top of it. So, I will install these weights tonight. I don't think you guys need to watch me do that. But I feel like this is some important information to help keep a 302 alive, or any motor, really, for that matter. Now, you could go with a neutral balance setup if you're going to build something. From what I understand with all this stuff, the less weight that you have external, usually the heavier the weight is internal. Meaning, if you have something balanced at 28 ounces, or if you do like a neutral balance, which has absolutely no weight externally, it has to be balanced inside. So usually, a lot of machine shops usually use Maori to do that. They insert a slug in the crankshaft. Now, that Maori is basically heavy, right? The crank ends up being heavier than what the external weights would be. Now, an internal balanced engine is better, in my opinion. I have one motor sitting at the machine shop that's been built. All my other stuff, I never had a built motor. I've always used junk. Stuff like you see me showing you guys right now. The engine in that's never been to a machine shop. It's never been, rebuilt. It's never had bearings under my ownership put in it, rings, none of that. It's just however it was is how it is. I didn't take it to get balanced. I didn't do any of that. So when I tell you stuff like this about an internal engine is better, it's either stuff I've heard, been told, or it's my opinion, and I've heard that they are better, and it makes sense as to why they're better. The weight is in the crank itself, not on the edge of the crank. So now, remember what I said with your spinning weight? And that weight's on the end of the crank. It's making the crank want to basically do this instead of this. So weight's being slung, and it's basically like almost like a flat tire in a sense when it rolls. That's what the weight's basically doing on here. I mean, look, I'll bolt this up, and I can show you on the balancer. 28 ounces on this flywheel. On one side of the flywheel. Now, yes, that's to counteract the crankshaft. But when you have two things counteracting each other, it causes harmonics at high RPM. That's why balancing is very important. So that way at high RPM, it's as inline as possible, doesn't flex the crank, and doesn't break a bunch of crap. Hence why neutral balancing is better, because all that weight is now in the crank itself. And really, in my opinion, it's not going to stress the crankshaft as much as the weight externally. So, that's pretty much it. If you're building a 302 and you want it to last, I would invest in a balancer. Romac is good. I think that's what's on my Mustang. They're usually higher up. Usually the better the part, the more expensive it is when it comes to this type of stuff. But longevity. I mean, when you think about longevity, is it really a lot of money to spend? You know, $400 when you got a broken motor sitting there. You know, granted, some 302s are cheap. I paid $50 for two of them. But I also don't feel like breaking them and pulling motors left and right over a $400 balancer. Now, that being said, I did not pay that for my Romac balancer. That's what they are new. $389, I think, last time I looked. But I think I got this one for like $100, roughly. So you can find this stuff cheap. Search Marketplace. There's nothing wrong with used stuff as long as it's not wrecked. As long as it's the right balance. You got to make sure that it is the correct balance. I cannot preach that enough. SFI approved is usually good. Cheap is usually bad. Trick Flow is one of the cheaper ones, and I think these are still $200. So this isn't like a $89.99 balancer. This is a $200 balancer, this Trick Flow one. So they're still fairly decent. Is the Romac better? I like the Romac balancer. But these Trick Flows, I've ran them before, and never had a problem with them. We'll see how it does on the wagon. You know, Trick Flow's a good company, so it's got a good name. Haven't really seen any issue with any of their stuff. Nothing major, at least. McLeod, another name brand company. This is an expensive flywheel. Granted, you know, this stuff I'm getting deals on and blessings from God and good people, you know. God's looking out for me, so I'm getting this stuff either handed to me or fairly cheap or pay me later kind of deals, like the balancer. So, invest into the balancers for these 302s, even 351s, any engine really. And the flywheel if you're a stick guy, or if you're an automatic guy, flex plate, make sure the balancing's right. SFI approved if you can afford to do that. If not, I'm not going to judge you. I've ran stuff that's not SFI approved and sent it. But if it's SFI approved, it is almost guaranteed to be 2 thumbs up. And this is SFI approved. It's flywheel. It's balancer, I believe. These are SFI approved. I don't think they usually have a sticker on them, which this is pretty worn, so I don't know if it's going to be on here. Actually, it's engraved SFI. So this is all SFI approved stuff. So that's something to look for in parts you get. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Something to look for in parts you get when it comes to this stuff. That usually means that it's been tested, trued, all that good fun stuff, that it's not going to let you down. Not to say that you'll never have a problem with it, because things only last so long, or there might be a flaw in one certain thing. It doesn't take much to ruin something. One little mistake. So, something to look for when you're ordering parts, and usually means that it's good. Now, you gotta be careful with eBay stuff. I love eBay. I actually ordered caster camber plates off eBay that I just forgot that I ordered. I'll show you guys those when they come in. When it comes to clutches, balancers, flywheels, valve train components, I do not trust eBay stuff. Now, if it's used, a private seller selling something, sure, by all means. If it's got a name brand, yes. Be careful of fakes. Amazon's the same way. I've ordered stuff, Autolite spark plugs from Amazon, supposedly Autolites, and found out that somebody overseas is making knockoff Autolite spark plugs. Or they changed like the styling of the Autolite name or something stupid so they can't get in trouble for it. Some of these companies don't care. Now, you gotta look out for that stuff. That stuff's crap. Don't last long. Might work for a little while. Valve train stuff, it will most likely break. If it doesn't, you're either not beating it hard enough or you got really lucky. Third option is that it wasn't a fraud. So just be careful is my point. My LS, that's at the machine shop. I bought LS7 lifters off of there, and the machine shop, they actually told me that they're good. The seller I bought them from, I believe, was a LSX store. They were a little bit more money. I want to say they were $120 instead of the $99 ones. So that's the type of stuff you got to watch out for, because you can go, oh, look, I can save a couple dollars and get the $99 ones, and they're the same, but they're not the same. Same thing with, I think it was Bosch 210s for a while. Might still be happening. They were real big. Everybody wanted Bosch 210 injectors, and they were making fake ones. The flow ratings were all over the charts, where the real Bosch injectors were only maybe 5 flow ratings different between, all 8. So, and when I say they were different, I mean one would flow, I forget what they flow, but let's say 205 in one injector, and another one would flow 190. That's a pretty steep difference. 180, 160, they were all over the place. I want to say as high as 40 pounds different. So keep that in mind when you get parts off eBay, off Amazon, or even a private store. Try to do some research, find out if it's good or bad. You could ask in some of the groups on Facebook. Might get laughed at, might get made fun of, but if you honestly don't know and don't act like an a-hole, I mean, there's some good guys that try to help on the Facebook groups. I find myself guilty of it too, saying, oh, you're a dummy to certain people, but the way they come off, or I might say, that guy's a dummy, whoever told you that. I'm bad with that, because some of the stuff I see on there is just asinine. I forget what I just saw on there the other day. Oh, C-clip eliminators will wear out the spider gears. I believe that was the post. C-clip eliminators will wear out spider gears in a rear end. I don't know where people come up with this stuff. And I don't know who told the kid this. The kid that asked the question, he's just trying to learn and he's being told wrong information. And I didn't call him a dummy, but I said, whoever told you that is dumb. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but the truth is the truth. If you don't know that type of stuff, you shouldn't make an assessment on it. It's just saying something like that is just dumbfounding, in my opinion. But I come to you guys with my opinion all the time. Maybe that was that guy's opinion, but obviously he must have never ever ran C-clip eliminators or know how they go together, because that's just, you can look at that whole rear end setup and figure out that that's a way better setup than C-clip eliminators. Anyway, that's a totally different subject. Getting back to this stuff, try to give you guys a rundown on at the end of it. Timing chain and gear, always good to do, especially if you can get the adjustable keyways. Like I said, that Cloy's True Double Roller billet piece might be $100 now, but they were $89.99 back when I used to get them, under $100. Good balancer, good timing chain and gear, and a good flywheel, proper balancing, and always check. Just heard some really strange noise. Not sure what that was. Anyway, always check and make sure that the stuff is for your application or for what you need. You know, you could maybe find a cheap flywheel that's 50 ounce balance and you got 28, or vice versa, and you order it not even thinking. I did it with a timing belt setup. I ordered a Boss one on mistake, and it's for a Boss 302. I get it, and it's completely different. So I was probably 5 or so years ago, I guess now, 7, yeah, probably about 7 years ago ish. So it happens to all of us. Sometimes I get excited when I see stuff at a good deal and I just click it, and I kind of think about it like, should I do it? Yeah, sure, and do it. So always check. It's one thing I've learned, more so recently, and that's bad. But all right, so that's pretty much it. That's all I got for you guys. Hopefully this helps, and hopefully somebody learned something off of it. So thanks for watching. Until next time, guys.